بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, inshallah today we'll be speaking about an extremely important topic, and that is the topic of how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam empowered the youth. When we look at this, the aim of Islam, we find that in Islam, the whole community, regardless of their age, have to work together in order to get the best of, firstly, the deen, our religious affairs, and secondly, our dunya, our worldly affairs. When we look at the community we live in today, not only the community, when we look at the globe as a whole, we find that there is generally a disconnect between the different generations, the older generation, the middle generation, and the younger generation, the youngsters, the youth. When we look at the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we find that there was no disconnect between the different generations. There was no disconnect between the youngsters and those who were older. When you ponder over his life, you would find that he used three main steps in order to achieve this, in order to get the best out of the youth. The first is, as we mentioned, there was no barrier. Why was there no barrier? There's a few reasons for this. The first, as Anas radiallahu anhu says, from the hadith recorded in Sahih Muslim, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam passed by a group of youngsters and he made salam to them. What is salam? This greeting breaks down barriers and it makes the people come closer. That's why in a hadith in Sahih Muslim, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says that you will never believe until you love one another. He then says that should I not tell you of an act of worship which if you carry out, it will increase the love between you all. Afshu salama bainakum. He didn't just say make salam. He said spread salam amongst you. Anybody who you see, young or old, small or big, you know them or you don't know them, make salam to them. This helps to break down barriers. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would not only greet those who he knew or those who were the same age as him, he would also greet the youngsters, those who we would see 5, 6, 7 years old. Not only that, he would ask them about the things which they liked. Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu says that he had a brother who had a small bird. We could call it a pet. In our terms today, it's a pet. He had a small bird and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would ask him. He would say, Ya Aba Umayr, oh Aba Umayr, giving him a nickname. Ma fa'ala an-nughayr. What has your small bird done? How is your small bird? What happened to your small bird? So look at how he's at the level of these youngsters. There's no barriers. He's asking them about the things that they liked. He would allow them to ride with him in Hajj when he was leaving Arafah to go to Muzdalifah. He allowed Usama ibn Zayd, who was another youngster, to ride with him. And from Muzdalifah to Mina, he allowed Al-Fadl ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma to ride with him. So what about us? Sometimes you see a youngster, somebody who you may not know, a Muslim child. You're going somewhere, he's going somewhere. Call him to ride with you in your car, walking with you. He will benefit from you. Teach them. Allow them to benefit from you and spend that time with them. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam would call the youngsters to his house to eat. Jabir radiallahu anhu says, as recorded in Sahih Muslim, one day Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam called me to his house and he took out a few pieces of bread. It doesn't have to be something lavish. A few pieces of bread over drink. But look at how there were no barriers. He would call them. And because this first point was achieved, where the barriers were broken, we get to the second point. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was then able to teach them. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, a youngster, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam one day advised me. He's a youngster, what would he advise him about? Ihfadillah yahfadk. Protect Allah, protect the rights which are between you and Allah, so that Allah will protect you. Who is he giving this advice to? A youngster. Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu says, one day Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam caught me by my shoulder and he told me, Kun fi dunya ka'annaka gharibun aw abiru sabil. Live in this world as though you are a stranger. Don't become attached to it, or a person who is passing by, a traveler. Don't become too attached to this dunya. So look at how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, firstly, there were no barriers between him and the youth. Secondly, He then taught them the things which benefited them in their deen, things which made them better people. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu says that one day I came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and I asked him to teach me from the Quran. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam told him, "Innaka ghulamun mu'allam." You are a learned child. You know. All the other meaning is, inshallah, you will become somebody who is learned, who is knowledgeable. Look at how he encouraged them. He praised them for the good they had. Speaking about Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu, another young companion, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said the most knowledgeable when it comes to halal and haram, when it comes to masail, is Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu. And no doubt he learned from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So we went over 2 points. Firstly, there were no barriers. And from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we learn how to break down these barriers. Number 2, we then teach the youngsters that which is of benefit. Let them benefit from your experiences. It doesn't all have to be good. You can tell them about some of the mistakes you made so that they learn. Point number 3, we find Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam empowered them even though they were young. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, after he conquered Makkah and he left Makkah, who did he leave in charge? He left a young Sahabi. Some say he was just under 20 and others say he was just over 20. His name was Attab ibn Usayd radiallahu anhu. He put him in charge of the whole of Makkah and he was in charge of making Hajj for the people. Imagine, in the community or the people of Makkah, there's older people around. Who did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam put in charge? He put Attab ibn Usayd radiallahu anhu in charge. Another example from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where he empowered the youngsters. After he made hijrah and he left for Medina, he told Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu to be in charge and return anything that needed to be returned. Those things that he had to return to others, he told Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu to return them. And he was a youngster. And the most prominent example of him empowering the youngsters is when he gathered a large army. In this army were the best of Muslims, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu. And remember, the age difference between Abu Bakr and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is just a few years. So Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was 60 odd years old. Who did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam put in charge? He put Usama ibn Zayd radiallahu in charge. How old was he? He was only 17 years old. He hadn't even finished what we would term today A-levels. He was in charge of the whole army. That was Usama ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu. So from this we learn that in order for us to become closer to the youth, to empower them, there should be no barriers. Not only that, we should take the opportunity to teach them and we should empower them. Yes, they will make their mistakes. Allow them to make their mistakes where it is permissible. They will learn from experience. That being said, the youth should also realize the value of the older generation, their experiences. That's why even at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we find those who accepted Islam first, the Muhajirin, those who participated in Badr, etc., they had a special standing and their opinions were sought and taken more often than not. So with those few words, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us goodness and to grant us beneficial knowledge.